The U.S. has a 90-day tariff truce with China. President Trump tweeted that he is ready to put down more tariffs if negotiations break down. One company that does business with China is Microsoft. Technology obviously wants to get a foothold in the largest population in the world, 1.3 billion people. The software giant has been in the Chinese market since 1992. It now has thousands of corporate partners in the region. And joining me right now in an exclusive interview is the president of Microsoft, Brad Smith. Brad, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Maria. It's good to be here.
So we've been talking a lot about this fight between the U.S. and China in terms of the theft of intellectual property, the forced transfer of technology, and some of the other behaviors that China has exhibited, not to mention not opening its market. Can you talk to us a bit about your experience in China?
Well, as you just mentioned, we've been there for a quarter of a century. And in that quarter of a century, we've seen enormous change. And today, the economic relationship between China and the United States is, let's face it, one of the most important economic relationships in the world. So I think we're looking to see what I think most people in business want to see. We'd like to see a successful conclusion over the next 90 days to these discussions. A successful conclusion would ensure market access for American products, including technology products, in China. It would clarify the rules of the road. It would create a long-term and stable foundation for a relationship that really is going to define the planet for the rest of this century in many, many ways.
But you know, from the standpoint of the Chinese basically blowing off patents and then stealing technology from foreigners, in particular American businesses, I recently had on one of your former colleagues, Steve Ballmer, and we talked about the cost of this, because I understand that 90% of large companies in China use the Microsoft platform, but something like 1% pay for it. Is that true today still? And Steve Ballmer said that you're talking about that would have been something like $10 billion in profit. That would have been profit for Microsoft. But the fact that they're not paying for it, only 1% of those companies actually pay for it.
Well, there are still issues we need to address, but there's been an enormous amount of change. We are still seeking as a company access to a number of parts of the market in China. We'd like to see a relaxation of some of the licensing restrictions and the like. But there are now patent applications filed by Chinese companies in China every day, as well as by American companies every day. China has become an enormous source of intellectual property creation. That is a huge part of the sea change over the last quarter century. So I think the two countries and the two governments are, in fact, much closer together than they were, say, when we started in China, when I joined Microsoft 25 years ago.
So I think what I hear you saying is that now China has its own innovation, its own intellectual property to protect. So maybe they will have a different view on this. I mean, do you think that China will somehow stop stealing intellectual property? I mean, can this fight move the needle on this?
I think there's a lot of opportunity to move the needle on this and many other issues. I think we want to have a regime that respects intellectual property. We need open access to these markets. As you mentioned, this is a country with 1.3 billion people. We need stable regulations in both countries. We would welcome the opportunity to do more in China, but do it in a way that gives people in both countries confidence that technology is being protected and respected.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. But, you know, in terms of people understanding the cost to American companies, here's the exchange between Steve Ballmer and myself just a few weeks ago. Listen to this, Brad. 90% of companies in China use the Microsoft operating system, but like 1% pay.
I'm a free trader by nature. I went to school, economics. It's the best thing for the world. This one's a tricky issue because it is absolutely clear that the rules don't apply in China, and the U.S. government needs to do something. Whether tariffs are right or wrong, I'm silent on that point. But without any pressure from the U.S. government, we're talking about $10 billion plus, for example, in Microsoft that would go into profit.
Is that the number, Brad? 10 billion?
I don't know that that's the number. These things are changing every day. Let's just say it's a big number.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that probably makes the point, and the importance of these negotiations and the importance of having a successful conclusion.